Welcome to the Kansas City Star Editorial Board's Facebook Live. I'm Colleen McCain-Nelson. I'm the editorial page editor at the Star. And today we're talking about the state of stadiums in Kansas City. I'm here today with Dave Helling from the editorial board, and we're talking with Jim Rowland, the executive director of the Sports Complex Authority. And we're having this conversation a few days before opening day, which has stadiums on the brain for us. And it's been
on my brain too.
It's been 11 years since voters approved
Yes.
Improvements for the stadiums, and so it probably feels like it hasn't been that long that the stadiums should be in good shape, but it may not be that long before we need to start thinking again about what needs to happen to the stadiums in the future. So I'm interested in how you're thinking about the stadiums long term.
Sure. It really depends on the day. If it seems like 11 years or 100 years. But we have 14 years left in the lease. They expire in 2031. There's actually 2 5-year extensions embedded in the lease. So it's plausible that the teams would pick up and exercise those lease extensions, so we would be good through 2041. We'd have to renew the sales tax prior to 2031, but yeah, it's a great time of year. Opening day for baseball is it's a major event. It's kind of that goes with people been kind of tied up all winter long. They're excited to be out. Grass is green.
Right.
Spring hope's eternal.
0-3 record outside.
Other than the 0-3 start, but no, it's a great time of year. The stadiums are in great shape. It's a testament to the voters of what we accomplished in 2006. So it's an exciting time. I actually just did a walkthrough of Kauffman, and we're finishing up. So. We'll be ready.
What are we going to see new this year, Jim? What have they done in Kauffman?
They've done some sponsorship changes, which dictated signage changes. They also have redone the Diamond Club, reconfigured it, which is kind of as you walk in that main center entrance, a club there, new patios, it's just a fresh look.
You're right when you say, I'm always amazed when I go out to see what good shape both ballparks are in part because of the renovations, in part because of the way they were designed and the way they've been used. But it also disguises their age a little bit. I mean, there's some of the 2 oldest stadiums. I think it's like the 5th oldest baseball stadium in America. Can a stadium be indefinitely extended, its life extended, or is there a point where you just say, look, we're spending too much money on this, we need to think about that?
Yeah, that's the probably $2.5 billion question. It's concrete, so there is a certain level of degradation that occurs over a long period of time. They're in great shape, though. What we have done as part of our oversight responsibility, we literally go through every single room of both buildings. We do what we call a stadium assessment. We are assessing the condition of a room and taking a photograph and archiving that information so that when someone goes to look at it when I'm long gone in 2025 or 2030 or whatever it is, they have a reference point to what first-class state-of-the-art looked like.
Yeah.
So,
but are you having anybody say to you, we need to really think about new?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Do you
certainly not the teams.
Yeah.
They continue to invest. As I said earlier, the Royals invested, 7 figures this off season in improvements. The Chiefs are getting ready to kick off in their off season 2 separate projects, one at the training facility, one at Arrowhead, that are both 7 figures. So there's a commitment by the teams to continue to invest significant amounts of money in capital. That does not kind of, talk about a team that is looking to cash out and leave at some point in time. They're continuing to invest.
But so if you're not thinking about new, what are you thinking about long term in terms of how to keep up with other cities that are opening new stadiums that have all sorts of bells and whistles and don't have aging stadiums? I mean, what can you do to make Kauffman, to make Arrowhead competitive in terms of amenities?
Well, they are. I mean, the reality is that when we did the improvements it started basically in 2007 and ended in 2010, they were brought up to a state-of-the-art condition. Each year, the teams are doing things that really deal with, all of the things that a new stadium might have. whether it's fan experience, but we significantly improved the amounts of points of sale, doubled women's restroom. I mean, we did all of the things that a new stadium would do. The technology component of the stadiums is still state of the art. So the reality is each of the teams is continuing to invest and continuing to keep it at a really high level. And that's what the assessment shows, that our job is to inspect that they're doing what they need to do to uphold the lease.
You, in retrospect, Jim, you went to the voters at the right time, don't you think, for the money that they poured into that stadium renovation project in 2006 and forward. The vote was in 2006, started in 2007. Because it does look like the voters' views of stadium projects have changed. I mean, St. Louis on Tuesday turned down a new soccer stadium, tax for that. You've got the problems in San Diego. Oakland has been a problem. It does seem, and state legislatures, certainly Missouri among them, have said not no, but hell no to stadium projects. Do you think about that at all? Is that the changing attitudes in terms of what happens now, what happens in the future? What's the state of play, if you will?
Certainly, nationwide, public financing for stadiums is a hot button issue. It depends on state by state and legislature and council by council, but certainly that atmosphere has changed.
And the costs have escalated so incredibly.
It's
$2 billion for the new Raiders stadium in Las Vegas.
Right, and the Los Angeles stadium. And, you got for $600 million all in taxpayers, $700 million, both stadiums renovated.
And basically brand new.
And that seems like a real, in retrospect, a smart thing to do, right?
A bargain, absolutely. And I think that was, the foresight of, we're very lucky in Kansas City to have such a hotbed of sports architecture, so we were blessed with that. The county voters, made a wise decision about that level of investment that they would make, and doing it in a time frame that allowed us to it not be in complete and utter total disrepair and so far behind. The other thing that we did in the lease was we capped the taxpayer's commitment to the sales tax.
Right, anything more the teams would pay for.
Exactly. So, it really put the burden on the teams, which is a different framework than some other communities have done. And that's where some communities have gotten in trouble, where the sports authority or the county or the city was on the hook for continuing to make repairs, upgrades that you talked about earlier to keep it state of the art. So it's a good lease, I think, for both sides. I mean, it works really well. But you're right. The atmosphere has certainly changed. I would say one thing about the teams, and we talked a little bit earlier before we started about, the teams are iconic. The buildings are iconic. The teams are absolutely committed to the community. I mean, they do a phenomenal job of embedding themselves in the community and making. Look at what happened in 2014 and 15 with the Royals. It was an amazing experience, and certainly the Chiefs have had, a lot of support over a long period of time.
Close to amazing experience.
We're getting closer to amazing. And I'm confident there.
Well, so if you're not thinking about new stadiums, do you foresee a day in the semi-near future where you would go back to voters and ask for more money?
I've had a couple of conversations with executive management of both teams where we've said, because it is hard for those of us that were involved in it on a, to
do it again.
Well, yeah, to do it again, and just to think about, that was 11 years ago.
Right.
I started, when we started the project, when we started the campaign, and it's hard to think because it was so fast and furious for so long, and then, we do the All-Star game in 12. We get into the playoffs and run a World Series 14 and 15. So it's just like been this blur of activity for a long time. But, we've started to have initial conversations about, hey, have you thought about? And the reality is neither one of the teams have really thought about it.
Right. But let's be clear, Jim. I think why I'm interested in this, and I wrote a little column about it just for the end of the year, is San Diego, which just lost its professional sports franchise, spent 10 years trying to solve its stadium problem and was never able to do so in 10 years. So it isn't as if those discussions would be overwhelmingly premature
Sure.
to begin now because the leases have 14 more years, or 13 or 14, whatever the number is. You would think that at least conceptually people, and I know you get asked all the time, why can't the Royals play downtown and all that. Conceptually, the community needs to at least to start thinking about this, right or not right?
It depends on the day of the week. It's still early.
We're not trying to get you to vote next year. We just
exactly.
spent
Please, no.
$800 million on infrastructure.
No, I don't.
So,
and again, I think
but it's not as easy as people think it is. That's the point
without
I'm trying
question.
to make.
And
We'll just get together. It'll take 6 months. No, it takes a long conversation to get these things.
It does. I certainly don't think it's going to take 14 years. But yes, it's at some point in the future, in those out years, we will begin to have conversations about the future of the stadiums. Again, the good news is because of what we're doing, we will know the condition of each of those buildings as an absolute. So that's a great point of reference. And the fact that we did so much during that construction project for both buildings to bring it up to. I mean, it's not, in San Diego, you're talking about making massive upgrades to the point of almost new, which is, as you correctly articulated, is billions of dollars now, not millions. Right. I mean, so it's a big number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so at this point, I mean, you always hear complaints from some people who say, why should taxpayers foot the bill for any of this? I mean, you're helping millionaires and billionaires, you're helping billionaires who own teams and millionaires who play in those stadiums. And is it possible at this point to keep up a stadium and to keep investing in it and make it competitive without taxpayer help?
It depends on the market, probably. I mean, you have a completely aberrant place in Los Angeles that it may be plausible.
And a multi-billionaire.
And a multi-billionaire. I think, public financing won't go away. And the reality is, we collect taxes at the complex. Just at the complex alone last year, between state, county, and city taxes, we generated over $44 million in taxes there, let alone all of the indirect taxes that are collected throughout the community. People going to bars, staying at hotels, going to get their beer, whatever it is. Right. So it's a big impact. The state of Missouri gives us $3 million. We return $28 million to them in direct taxes. So there is a level of return. Also, I think there's that whole quality of life, being a first-class city. The PR that Kansas City got during 14 and 15 is irreparable. I mean, that is a massive amount of money that was free.
Right.
So there is something to be said about having professional sports teams in. Are
you ever astonished at how much local voters are willing to support that, Jim? I mean, we saw the $800 million on Tuesday. We saw the vote on the sports complex tax about more than a decade ago. Kansas Cityans actually appear willing to write a check if they think they're getting value. Is that
absolutely?
You were at City Hall, so you understand.
Yeah, and I also think too, like as we talked earlier, we have great ownership that are committed to Kansas City. We have great franchises led by amazing executive management that are embedded in the community and part of it. We have the teams themselves that do an amazing job at community development and getting out there and being part of. So it's not, I mean, I think people think of Salvador Perez as like the big brother or the uncle or the cousin that they all they could they could have a beer with, or well, in some cases they did during the World Series. They were down at Power and Light.
Right.
I mean, they've done a great job of committing themselves wholeheartedly to our city, and people recognize that.
Yeah.
Well, Kansas City voters appear willing to support some of these things. The Missouri legislature has not always appeared as willing to invest in some of these things. How much does it concern you when you see their unwillingness to foot the bill, some discussions in Jefferson City, their willingness to see the Rams leave? I mean, does that concern you that you might not have support from this at the state level when you need it?
Yeah, we've enjoyed great support from the state. We anticipate when we make a logical argument to the legislature to the governor that, hey, it's different than building a brand new facility where you're going to foot the bill and you're going to pay for bonds. They give us $3 million a year. Not us, but they give the complex $3 million a year. They're getting $28 million in return. That's a pretty good deal.
Plus, the St. Louis deal was a little different than what's happening. I mean, the state did kick in $50 million for the Truman Sports Complex back in the day, back in 2006, as part of the financing package in tax credits. Remember?
Yeah, it was 62.5 for.
Yeah. But I guess my point is the St. Louis deal, they're paying $12 million a year in St. Louis for the existing dome, and now they're being asked to build a new one. That always seemed like a heavy lift to me.
And again, with an ownership that was never committed to the community, that probably
That's a key, isn't it?
I really think it is.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. About ready for the year to start? I mean, what do you do all winter? Wait for baseball, or what do you do?
We have a lot of projects that start queuing up in anticipation of opening day. Baseball is, because the baseball season is already ongoing. When the Chiefs open the season, it's a little bit easier because we're already in the flow. Opening day for us as well is a big deal. We've got a couple of really big projects coming up this year. We are converting all of our parking lot lights to LED.
Oh.
So we're continuing to invest in an environmental presence and doing things that we think are better for the environment. We have a huge native grass project, as you know, that's been out there for about 5 or 6 years. That's kind of fully mature. So we're always excited about opening day. It's a great time of year.
Well, that's about all the time we have today. Do you have any, before opening day, do you have any bold Royals predictions? How's the season going to go? Is it going to get better?
159-3. 159-3.
That's still on the table.
Exactly. We're on pace for 159-3.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time,
Thank
Jim.
you.
And thanks for tuning into Facebook Live.